The neighbor who knew too much I used to think my apartment building was the most normal place on earth. Quiet, boring, predictable. Then my downstairs neighbor, Maya, started inserting herself into my life in ways that felt helpful at first, until they didn't. She always had something of mine. Packages I hadn't realized were delivered, laundry I didn't drop, a trash bag I never asked her to take. She acted like she was doing me favors, but it was the timing that bothered me most. Every time I came home, she appeared within minutes like she was waiting. I noticed little things changing in my apartment. The thermostat set to a temperature I never used. My shoes moved. A window I always locked suddenly open. I kept telling myself I was overthinking, but the feeling of being watched never went away. The turning point happened when I came home one night and saw my door slightly cracked. Inside, nothing looked taken, except my framed photo of my brother and me had been turned around to face the wall. I knew I didn't do that, and that picture is the one thing I never touch. So I bought a small motion camera and hid it by the entryway. Just one night. Just to see. The next day at lunch, I got a motion alert. I opened it expecting maybe a bug, maybe a delivery. It was her. The video showed my door opening from the inside. Maya stepping out, and she was holding something to her chest. I zoomed in until the image blurred, but I still recognized it. She was carrying my photo frame. There was a second clip, her coming back in, placing it exactly where it belonged, and leaving like nothing happened. That was last night. Right now, I'm sitting on my couch with the lights off, watching the live feed from the same camera. I hear footsteps in the hallway. They stop outside my door. The doorknob just turned, and the camera has a new motion alert. When Maya moved out, the building felt like it exhaled for the first time in months. The hallways didn't feel tense anymore, and I told myself the worst was over. I wanted to believe that all the strangeness, the cracked door, the missing photo frame, her quiet apology, was done. For a while, maybe 2 months, life actually felt normal again. I went to work, came home, cooked, watched TV, slept without needing to check every lock twice. The motion camera went into a drawer. I even started leaving my blinds open again. But getting rid of a person doesn't automatically get rid of everything they left behind. It started small. One rainy night, I came home with grocery bags, and this faint feeling that the air inside my apartment didn't match what it usually felt like. Not colder or warmer, just touched. Like someone else had breathed in it before I arrived. I brushed it off. Weather does that sometimes. Humidity, drafts, whatever. But as I was putting groceries away, I opened a cabinet and froze. My jar of rice wasn't where it always sits. It wasn't on the counter either. After a minute of searching, I found it tucked neatly behind the mixing bowls, somewhere I'd never put it. It wasn't thrown or misplaced. It was placed, thoughtfully, deliberately. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to pretend it was nothing. I'd been tired, distracted, rushing. That's what I told myself. But that night around 2 in the morning, I woke up to a soft thump in the walls. Not loud, not alarming, but intentional enough that I sat up and held my breath. Old buildings make noises, I reminded myself. Pipes settle, wood expands. But this didn't feel like settling. It felt like movement. Still, nothing happened the next day. Or the next week. I tried to drop it. Tried to convince myself I was overreacting. But when I opened my bedroom closet one morning, everything inside had shifted. The hangers all turned in the same direction. Perfectly aligned. I never organized that closet. It's a mess, crooked hangers, clothes shoved between other clothes. But these were aligned like someone had stood there and adjusted each one carefully. My chest went tight. I checked the door, locked. The windows latched. Everything sealed. I told myself I must have straightened them without thinking. But it stuck in my mind all day like a splinter. That night, I pulled the motion camera back out. Not because I wanted to, but because I wouldn't sleep without answers. I set it up in the same spot as before, angled at the entryway. The next morning when I checked the app, I had 2 motion alerts. The first was me leaving for work. The second made my blood run cold. At 12:43 a.m., while I slept, the doorknob turned. Slowly, testing the lock, the shadow under the door shifted, just like the night Maya tried it. But this wasn't her. The motion was calmer, taller, more deliberate. The deadbolt held. After a moment, the shadow moved away. I sat on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hands, heart pounding so hard I felt dizzy. This wasn't in my head. Someone tried to get in. Again, I didn't want to jump to conclusions, didn't want to accuse a neighbor without proof, but I couldn't pretend it was normal. Later that day, by pure coincidence, the building manager was in the lobby when I returned. He must have seen something in my expression, because he asked if everything was all right. Before I could stop myself, I told him someone had tried my lock. I showed him the footage. He watched it twice, his face tightening. When he finally looked at me, he said 2 other units had reported strange noises in the stairwell at night. Not break-ins, just noises. Enough to make people uneasy. That didn't make me feel better. He said he'd install an additional camera in the hallway soon. I told him soon wasn't good enough. He nodded, promised to get it done that week. But that night something else happened. When I came home from work the next day, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Blank, white, no name. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. A picture of the hallway taken from above, like someone had climbed onto something to angle the camera downward. The shot faced my door. The timestamp was from 3 nights earlier. At 2:17 a.m., while I slept, a cold wave washed over me. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. Someone was watching my door from the hall, in the exact blind spot where my camera didn't reach. I took the photo straight to the building manager. He cursed under his breath when he saw it, told me he'd move the hallway camera installation to tonight, and asked if I wanted him to call the police. I told him yes. An officer came, took the footage and the photo seriously, and asked all the usual questions about exes, arguments, stalkers. I said no to everything. He asked if I suspected Maya. I told him she was gone, her apartment empty, with no reason to come back. But even saying that, some part of me hesitated. The officer left with a promise to increase patrol. It didn't make me feel safer. That evening, maintenance came to install the hallway camera, a black dome facing my door. Red light blinking. For the first time in days, I felt like I had something concrete protecting me. I fell asleep around 1 a.m., exhausted from fear. At 3:12 a.m., a motion alert woke me. My heart slammed once painfully. I opened the hallway feed. The hallway appeared grainy and gray. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a figure stepped into frame. A tall man wearing a hooded jacket, face shadowed. He moved slowly, confidently, like he belonged there. He paused directly in front of my door. He didn't knock. He didn't try the handle. He just stood there staring at it. After a long moment, he reached into his pocket, pulled out something small and white. A piece of paper. He crouched and slid it under my door. Then, still kneeling, he lifted his head and looked straight at the camera. Not startled. Not angry. Just acknowledging it. After a second, he stood and walked away, disappearing down the stairwell. The clip stopped. I sat frozen, gripping my phone so tightly my nails dug into my palm. My breath felt stuck in my chest. Eventually, I forced myself to stand. I walked to my door on shaking legs, and stared at the envelope lying on the floor. It looked identical to the last one. I didn't want to touch it, but I had to. Inside was no message. No photo. Just a key. Not my current key. My old one. The one Maya used to have access to. The one I replaced months ago. The one I assumed she'd lost or thrown out or kept. Someone had returned it. Someone who'd been inside my apartment before. Someone who wanted me to know they weren't finished. Something in me broke then, not dramatically, not loudly. Just a quiet snap of certainty. I couldn't stay here anymore. The next morning, I told the building manager I was breaking my lease. He didn't argue. He barely blinked. He just nodded, like he'd been waiting for this. I packed in silence, heart racing with every sound. I didn't care about losing my deposit. I didn't care about convenience. I cared only about getting out. When I closed my apartment door for the last time, the hallway felt colder than usual. Empty but watching. I left the motion camera behind. Let the next person decide if they needed it. I moved across the city to a building with security, cameras, a lobby desk, bright lights that never flickered. For weeks I slept lightly, waking at the smallest noise. But slowly the tension loosened. The panic faded. The nights got easier. One quiet evening, I unpacked the last of my boxes. I took my brother's framed photo out and placed it on a new shelf in my new living room. And for the first time in a long, long time, I believed no one else would touch it. Not Maya. Not the man in the hallway. Not anyone. At least that's what I tell myself. Because sometimes, just sometimes, when I'm riding the elevator up to my new floor, I get that old feeling in my chest. Like someone is still watching. Not close. Not near. Just far enough away to stay hidden. But close enough that they don't want me to forget.